Good day, everyone. Richard Copperthwaite for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. Having another one of our shows before the Tuesday, March 1st town meeting, getting ever closer. And happy to have a guest on the show this morning, Reier Erickson, a candidate for the Maple Run School Board, I guess is the easiest way to put it. Reier, I guess officially the Maple Run Unified School District number 57, but AKA the Maple Run School Board. And I should note at the outset, you've got a contested race with Keith Longmore. And I should note two incumbents on the school board running unopposed, Nina Hunsaker from St. Albans Town, and also Joanna Jarose from Fairfield, two incumbents on the board running unopposed. You've got the one contested race, and I guess it's a seat of Alicia Sawyer's seat?
Yep, yeah, Alicia Sawyer, yeah.
Who I believe is backing you.
Yes, yeah, she's been very gracious in endorsing me. Yeah.
So again, one of the incumbents not running. And as folks may know, in a contested race, 4 contested races that I've been dealing with, trying to deal with here in the St. Albans Swanton area. And of the 4 contested races, this is the only one that I was not able to get both candidates to sit down together. Keith Longmore declined the invitation for a joint interview. Reier was well prepared to do a joint interview, so sorry about that. But again, Keith Longmore has been offered equal time for the record. Reier, you ran a year ago. Maybe get into that a little bit, but give us a background and why did you decide to jump in again?
Sure. I bought a house in St. Albans in 2019, so I've been here for about 3 years or so. I have 2 kids in the district, a first grader and a fourth grader. They both go to St. Albans City School. And I've been working, previous to this current year, I was involved in the Maple Run Equity Committee. And when the new superintendent took over, he decided to kind of move all of that work in-house and combine it with the social emotional learning aspect. It was upsetting, I think, for a committee to be around for 5 years and to kind of just like turn it off felt, it was upsetting. I think it was hard to deal with, and I think there was a lot of work behind that kind of got lost. And so I really thought that transparency was important, and at that point I decided I'd run for office again for a school board seat and try to kind of bring some of this work to light and make for a more transparent process.
Right. And background, give us some more background, work background. What do you?
Sure. So I'm originally from Minnesota, from a small town in International Falls, Minnesota, which any weather buffs will know is one of the coldest.
We talked about that a year ago.
Coldest place in lower 48. Yep, right. Nation's icebox. Hockey town, much like St. Albans, in a way. A little bit more maybe, but I worked. I've been a stay-at-home dad actually for a long time. A lot of my wife's career kind of took over our family, and so I decided to support her in that role and take a step back and be a stay-at-home dad. Recently, I worked for the post office. I was a mail delivery mail carrier for about a year, and then I moved on to work for Pathways Vermont, which works in housing. And I just recently left that job. My wife took a new job, which requires a little bit more, or for her to travel a little bit more, and so I decided to take a step back.
Interesting. Flashing back just for a moment to a year ago, again, that was a 3-way race for 2 seats.
Yeah.
And your opponents, in fact, I interviewed yourself and Peter Delorier and Nilda Ganella-French zoomed in. So I had all 3 candidates, which I appreciated. Thought you all did a fine job. Nilda Ganella-French was the incumbent at that point. Peter Delorier seeking a school board seat, and yourself.
Yeah.
And and again, I thought you 3 folks did a fine job. I was a little, I think a comment, and again, tell me if it's correct. I think your take on your loss was a lot different than my take was, but I believe the word racism, did I? And again, this is, somebody said, Reier's comment after the election was racism won out or something. Is that inaccurate?
I think that's an inaccurate.
That kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah,
I would have said, hey, I thought you were a worthy candidate. For what little my opinion's worth, I would have given you zero hope to win that race against an entrenched, well-regarded incumbent, and Peter Delorier only was the longest-serving mayor in St. Albans' history.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch on that, not to belabor it, but was that not a...
I think that's a little bit of out of context as to what happened, and I think that was picked up and kind of like really focused on. I think for me, my take was I really campaigned hard. I did honkin' waves. I stood in front of the city hall for all day, that freezing cold day of town meeting last year. I just did a lot, and I think a lot of what happened was, for me, was just a large amount of frustration in the fact that I did all this campaigning and it didn't really make it. I mean, it made a dent. I think I got almost 1,000 votes, which was great.
Like,
so yeah, but I think that was probably that quote was taken out of context.
Okay, I was just curious because I said, I thought, first time I had met you a year ago.
Yeah.
You came in, I think Peter Lauria, as I recall, was very impressed with how you sounded as a candidate. But anyway, I would have said, hey, good luck. Good for you for running, giving voters a choice, but there's no way you're winning this race.
Right, yeah. And
I sure don't mean to minimize any
No.
racial. In fact, this headline, I'll just mention this briefly, having gone to college in North Carolina, but boy, talk about it, and maybe there's all kinds of stuff. Black colleges alarmed by bomb threats. This was the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities. But geez, what a horrible situation. I went to school, actually, Duke University in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And originally had an all-black college there. I think North Carolina College, now North Carolina Central.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Jones was a graduate of Boston Celtics fame. But North Carolina also, I think Elizabeth City State, Winston-Salem State, but I mean, what a horrible situation. But again, it seems like we just don't get past this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think things. I think in the '80s things were getting better, and I think since then things have gotten worse again. And I think there was a student at BFA who was sent a racist thing that was horrible. I just heard about. One of the hockey games against Essex, who has a black hockey player, where BFA students were making like guerrilla noises.
And in fact, actually, just in the news, I wake up to radio news this morning. Enosburg again in the news with apparently or allegedly some racial slurs hurled at a Middlebury player just a couple nights ago, and of course the controversy about the earlier Enosburg Winooski. So, boy, this is just pretty discouraging stuff.
It's discouraging, but I think in the Enosburg case, I think it was handled very well. I think the athletic director said, we're not doing this. You're not going to let that happen, and he kind of just ended it. And I think that, it does punish all those students, and it does punish people who might not have had anything to do with it.
Not to mention fans, I guess, of the next girls
at the BFA game. They weren't allowing fans, and I think that's unfortunate. But I think it takes a book or takes a page out of what the soccer does, and says if your fans do something that's inappropriate, we will punish you as a team. And it's unfortunate, but I think, what else can you do? What else can you do in that? So, and I think in that case, the athletic director acted almost immediately and said, no, this is done. You guys can leave. And I think it was handled, the way he handled it.
Well, in the district, so again, stuff comes up. Do you think in the district you're running for is in pretty good shape on that? Or, I mean, there's always education to be done. What shape do you think the district's in on stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels a little rudderless. I think when the equity committee was around, right, it had at least a driving force to kind of work on those issues. And I think when you have those issues being dealt with by a community, it's much better. And I think the community can come together and face those things and hear from other people. And I think now we have, it's kind of been outsourced to restorative justice practices, which isn't located in, I think it's out of Essex or it's out of Chittenden County, I think, somewhere. And, they're not familiar with our community as much. They don't know the challenges. They don't know the people. And I think that ends up being a challenging thing to then work through them to do it. And we saw it with, they were going to have a meeting to talk about racism and to talk about this, and it was canceled because it just hasn't been handled in a way that I feel is driven with an idea of what to do.
Yeah. The district, I don't know, maybe you know the stat, it's obviously very small. BIPOC, the number of BIPOC students in the district has got to be, a couple percentage points?
Yeah, I think it's about 3%.
Yeah, I would guess certainly not more than 3%.
Yeah, it's tiny. I think it's actually larger than Vermont as a whole.
Yeah, slightly.
Because it's obviously a larger municipality area. Yeah. But I think about 3%.
Interesting. Just speaking personally, yourself and your family, how have you fared in St. Albans? Have you run into some incidents once in a while, or have you
Sure.
folks, I hope, fared pretty well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, you run into incidents all the time and everywhere, and that's going to be in,
Unfortunately, I guess
Alabama,
you get-
Florida, California, Minnesota, anywhere you go, you're going to run into incidents. I feel there have been incidents here that have been alarming and not great, but there have also, I come from a small town. I love small town America, and I think small town America is really where America's built.
International Falls, I assume, about as white as St. Albans is. An extremely
Yeah,
white.
probably. Yeah,
probably
maybe
white,
a little bit
probably-
more
probably
actually. Yeah,
whiter.
yeah, and similar size. And the difference, of course, is I was from there, and my family was from there, and so I was, I was a known entity, and you don't tend to pick on people who are known entities, as opposed to when you're in a new place and you maybe garner a little bit more attention. But yeah, I think it happens everywhere. St. Albans is a absolutely lovely community. We moved here with the idea of living our whole lives. We didn't buy our house thinking we were gonna move later, and we
Probably
don't have
mentioned a
any
year
plans
ago.
on that.
How'd you happen to move to St. Albans?
We lived in Bristol and Middlebury area
Okay.
for a long time. We were
Addison County?
renting there. Yep, Addison County, and we ended up, we were looking for housing, and our realtor suggested St. Albans as a great, we could get a little bit more house for a little bit less money, and we found this house on Rugg Street and fell in love with it. So yeah, it just was kind of a chance encounter.
Interesting. Of course, the big article, aside from the contested school board race that voters will be voting for, is the budget. This is obviously easily the biggest
Yeah.
budget in Franklin County, but we're talking about almost $65 million.
Yeah.
Any for the fiscal year 2023 starting July 1st. Anything in that budget? It sounds like you go to just about all the school board
Yeah.
meetings. So I suspect you have some feel for that.
Yeah.
You'll be voting for that budget? Is that a good assumption? Or you're pondering
I'm not sure.
Really?
I believe in education. I believe in education spending. I'm a big proponent of public education. For me, it's about $700,000 increase. I think it's about 4.75% increase, which is almost double what it is most normal years. Usually you get a 2% increase or so. It's a big jump. I'm really interested in, what those line items are. Where can we find? So, for instance, to bring it back to that equity committee, you had a group of people who were doing work, and they were doing work on a volunteer basis, right? So the equity committee was all volunteer, teachers, community members, and parents, and they were doing that work for free. And what the district decided to do was, no, we will outsource that and pay money to do that work when it's not done as effectively, and then you're paying money to do it. So I think there are line items like that I think are redundant, and have to be ways to make the system more efficient and make the budget more efficient. That being said, I do think that obviously COVID and the coronavirus has thrown a wrench into spending and has caused a huge increase in the need for money. So it's hard to tell. I'm still debating with myself how to feel about the budget and if I vote for it or not. And going through line items is always really hard because you see one thing, you think, well, that makes sense. And then you see another, you think that doesn't make sense. And it's hard to tank an entire budget based on one or two items that you might not agree with.
I guess the public does have a chance to weigh in on the budget, but it's still pretty, how many people are going to even give comments to the school board? So it obviously pretty much comes down to the school board doing its thing with super and staff.
Yeah. And so it's really up to them to sell it. And I think that's what I'm waiting to see, how they sell it, because they want a big increase, and that's fine. Is it needed? That's what they need to prove, and so that's what I'm waiting to see.
In your campaigning, you're running into other people who have concerns about, does the budget come up much or not as much as other issues?
Boy, not as much.
Campaigning.
Although the board meeting where they voted for it, it was, I think, 3 or 4 down votes on it. It was
really?
closer than you. Yeah, it wasn't.
is that right?
It wasn't.
Not unanimous?
Yeah, no, not by a long
close.
shot.
Oh, really?
I think it's definitely a contentious budget. I don't know how people are
Interesting.
feeling about it.
I don't think that budget, as I think about it, I don't think that budget's, ever since BFA became a public school and you got together, I don't think that budget's ever been defeated. I can't remember the last time a budget was defeated, but you never know, I guess.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I think it has been, I was looking at the history and it had been a long time ago, but not in the recent history,
Interesting. Speaking of campaigning, again, with the pandemic, Gee, I mean, that's got to make it tough. I mean, is door-to-door campaigning, is that like the last thing you'd be doing? You got a pretty big place to campaign in Elton.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard to door-to-door because if I wear a mask, I don't know if the other person's feeling comfortable.
Right.
I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable.
So you're not even...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's through Front Porch Forum. I have, putting up signs, doing kind of door-to-door, just kind of mailers in the door that people can read and see. But, and the other thing is campaign cash. I don't feel comfortable asking people for money, to donate money when times are tough for everyone. And especially with, a budget coming out that's going to be larger. I think the city budget is going to be larger, as a substantial
city budget's a little over $10 million. This year.
A substantial city budget as well. So I think times are tough, and it's not like the best time to ask people for money for a school board race. So it's been largely just self-funded and, relying on people to kind of power me through.
Right, and of course the district includes St. Albans City, St. Albans Town, BFA, and Fairfield.
Yeah.
It's Fairfield, so here you are in St. Albans City, or where you live, St. Albans Town, where we're speaking. But is Fairfield a little tougher? You've got some support, obviously, in Fairfield, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, my big push, one of my big platforms this year is I think we need to increase the votes Fairfield has. They have about.
When you say increase the vote,
So on the board. Sorry. So right now on the board, town gets 4 votes, city gets 4 votes, and Fairfield only gets 2 half votes.
So one vote, basically.
1 vote total, right? And it's when you look at the percentages of students, about 44% of students are from town, 41% are from the city. And Fairfield has 15%. And so it doesn't make sense to still be giving them 2 half votes, especially because they are farther out and their needs are much different than the needs of like a BFA city and town, which are all within, a mile of each other. Fairfield is much farther out. And so
you'd like to see Fairfield get at least, another half vote at least? Or
maybe. I mean, that's right. So then that's hard because you can't just give them 2 votes because then you end up having an even number of votes, and on a tie, then you have issues there too.
That's tough.
So it's just what really needs to be done. It just needs to be examined and looked at by the board. But I think it's vital that Fairfield's given an equitable amount of representation on that board.
Interesting. And again, voters throughout the district, as we talked about, maybe off air or vote. Everybody votes on the school board members.
Yep.
So that's a fair amount of voters we're talking, obviously.
Yeah.
And in the case of St. Albans Town, which I can only assume will easily have the best turnout because they're mailing ballots to town residents. City's not doing that. Fairfield's not doing that. I should know. We're taping this show on Thursday, February 10th. And again, town meeting day, Tuesday, March 1st. But folks, now, as soon as you see the show, as you probably know, you can go down to the town, your city or town clerk's office and request a ballot and can vote early if that's better for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you think, again, to the extent you are campaigning, people are aware, hopefully, town meeting's coming up, or do you run into some folks who say, oh yeah, there's an election coming? Town meeting day just seems to have, I've been up here for, hate to say it, almost half a century, but it just seems like every year town meeting day just kind of declines to me a little bit. It just doesn't have the life it used to, but it still has some life, obviously.
Sure. I mean, yeah, and I think people don't understand what's up for vote. I think that's the biggest thing. When I first started campaigning, people said, well, when is it? Town, and I say town meeting day. Right. So that's March or something? And it's 1st of March. So yeah, it's a little bit less. I mean, on a primary election year, you'd have 3 elections in a year, and that's a lot. So, but I think most people are in tune with it. At least they're in tune with it happening. And I think, like you said, towns mailing out ballots. The city isn't, because the ward issues. It's hard to mail out specific ballots to specific wards when you don't have. I mean, it just creates a whole nother mechanism.
But for St. Albans Town, they pretty much double their turnout. So typically from about 900, you could double that or so.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. And with a school budget, for instance, it does give people the opportunity to sit and look at that budget and say, is this worth, the 4.75% increase? Is that worth it? So it's I think it's better. I think it's a great way to do it. But
an issue that definitely got quite a bit of attention, and I thought of it yesterday. I happened to interview the new Swanton Police Chief, Matt Sullivan. Seemed like a real solid guy, but the SRO issue came up,
Yeah.
school resource officer. As you probably wouldn't be too surprised, he's very supportive of that. Guess there's an SRO at MVU anyway. But that was a fairly contentious issue with Maple Run. And again, a change was made. No more SROs, or I know, a committee was formed that kind of looked at that, right?
Yeah, well, it was, so the committee was formed to look at it, they looked at it, and then the school board voted, and surprisingly enough, I mean, it was
almost unanimous.
8-1, yeah.
To be honest, I was very surprised by that.
Even, I mean, I remember, Katie Messier ran as a pro SRO candidate, and even she voted against it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing was, I think overall, the SRO program just didn't make sense, really. From a fiscal standpoint, we were paying over $250,000, over $250,000 for 3 part-time employees who didn't have any, reason to be on campus.
Yeah.
With the police liaison, now we have a system in place. We have 2 police liaisons. They are stationed out of the police station instead now, which makes more sense for them, because if there is an emergency where they need to not be police liaisoning and be active in terms of a city police officer, it still means that our schools are safe and are being watched and helped by police. But it just made more sense. I mean, from a very fiscal standpoint, we're saving. That getting rid of that saved $100,000. That's a lot of money.
But a police presence isn't far away, obviously, if need be.
Right. Well, and that was the other thing. The other interesting thing about the SRO thing was that Fairfield was the only one without an SRO, and they don't have any. They don't have any policing. So I think it just wasn't. It just didn't make fiscal sense to continue that program at the price of over almost $300,000. So,
interesting.
Yeah, but I think I think what happened was that the school board came up with an alternative that I was pitching for and pushing for, and I was really happy that they did it, because I do think police are important, and I do think that's the safety of our schools is important. I just think there's a better way to go about doing that, and I think the school board obviously the school board agreed, almost overwhelmingly.
Yeah, no, I was very surprised by the vote.
Yeah.
Interesting. The curriculum in Maple Run, are you pretty satisfied with that? Are there any significant changes you'd love to see, or?
I mean, a little bit, but it's hard. So the truth is
that I realize you're not on the board at this point.
Right. Yeah, anymore. And I haven't. I was in the school for the first time this year because before that I had never gotten to go in school because we were in.
You couldn't get in there. Yeah.
But I think overall it's great. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now are the teachers are just doing an amazing job.
Boy, it sounds like pretty tough times. I know.
I don't know how teachers have done it, and I'm just overall so impressed.
In fact, I was a paraeducator going back many years when I've got an 18-year-old son. I told you, going to school in Italy now. But when just after he was born, I thought, well, maybe I better get a handle on kids. I was a para at SATEC for a couple of years, and I can't tell you. I think I had pretty good feelings for teachers before then, but they pretty much blew my mind. My appreciation for teachers just went up 100-fold, and with the pandemic, boy, tough situation. I think I saw a story in the Messenger and with COVID and stuff, and boy, some of the substitute teachers working every day. I mean, it must be a very tough couple of years.
I was an educator. I was a teacher for 1 year.
No, really.
And it was a high school. I was a high school drama teacher. So you'd think it was just the best. Like that's the best job you could get. And it was very hard. I mean, it was challenging and hard. And that was, like you said, without a pandemic happening. So our teachers in Maple Run especially have just done so much with so little, and they're continuing to be just an amazing presence in our schools. My kids' teachers are incredible. I mean, they're just amazing, and I can't thank them enough for continuing to come to school. We've had maybe 2 days that we've been out for COVID since the school year, so incredible.
And they've been going to classes all year or most of the year, or
all year. We, like I said, I think there were maybe 2 days, and then there was, I think, a snow day or something where they.
I think there was a wind chill day. I think.
Yeah, wind chill day. Yeah, that might be more accurate, but. It's been incredible. So the teachers the substitutes have really come together. The principals, I can't speak for other schools, but the communication from City School, from Joan and Stacy, the principal and vice principal at City School, it's been incredible. They are on top of it. They let parents know what's going on. It's been really great. So,
Down about 3 minutes left. Any issue you want to quickly talk about that we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, I think for me, the big thing is just, I think parents really want to be involved. And I think we saw that, I don't know if you're familiar with the holiday scandal around
In fact, that was
Christmas.
on my list here. There was a holiday flap
Yeah, so
about
I
how to
think-
celebrate Christmas and the other holidays.
Right, yeah, and that was a big
Yeah, that was a big issue, I
failure.
guess.
And I think it was a big failure. And I think a lot of people, the school tried to make it about equity, but I think equity and inclusion is really about celebrating everyone
Yeah.
and bringing everyone together. And so,
Yeah.
while it may be equity inclusion, in my mind, it's lazy equity and inclusion. It's not done in a way that's celebrating everyone, and I think that could have been done so much better. And again, brings me back to that equity committee, which could have been so vital in kind of forming and shaping a policy around how to go about doing that. And it just kind of felt like a failure. And I think we saw that overall, almost everyone, no matter what your politics were, kind of was upset with that. And I think for me, that's a big thing. Parents want to be involved. And I think I'd love to see the school board do more in terms of getting parents and community members involved.
Now that you mentioned that, it seems like I was seeing flyers. I'm going back months, I think maybe right before Christmas. Didn't I see flyers for a public meeting to discuss school issues at Collins Pearly, and again down to minute and a half, and that
Yeah.
was scrapped? What was the story?
That was to talk about racism and racism in the district.
So
It was
what
scrapped
happened?
because people they didn't do enough communication about what that was about, and so people thought it was about just talking about everything in general,
Really?
and it wasn't. But really, there should be though. There should be listening sessions. There should be more than just 2 minutes at every board meeting where people get to express their feelings. There should be a listening sessions, open forums where school board members can sit and hear from other people and have them express, and then respond back and say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Let me talk to you more about this in private. Or let's figure out a way to handle that.
So it sounds like if you're elected, it sounds like that's something you'll definitely be pushing
Big
for.
push for. I believe heavily in transparency, and I think most parents want their kids to succeed and want to be involved in their students' lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very hard. And by making it more available, I think it makes it easier for parents to be there and be involved.
Right. I'll give you another 30 seconds to make your case, Reier.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Reier Erickson. I'm running for school board. I'm a St. Albans City resident. I have 2 kids, a 1st grader and a 4th grader in city school. I welcome any sort of questions, comments about my campaign. I really hope you vote for me. My webpage is ericksonmrsd.com. And please go there, visit. You can get my email address there and email me questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, that's going to just about do it. Again, town meeting day, folks, not far away, Tuesday, March 1st, and you can get ballots ahead of time if need be. And again, candidates, a contested race, a 3-year term. Reier Erickson with us today, and Keith Longmore, the 2 candidates running from St. Albans City for the Maple Run School Board. I'm Richard Cobrathwaite. Thanks to producer Roger. See you next time.